Well, friends, this has never happened before in a regression. As you noted last week, or last time, Sierra and I are doing a series of regressions to help return some missing memories. However, this time the light side interfered. They had other ideas. And what made this so unusual, I've never had anything even remotely happen like this before. Sierra dropped right into a current life Brazilian farmer's eyes. He was watching a spacecraft, and what this spacecraft was doing left him very confused. And in the beginning, I'm thinking, is this a violation of spiritual law? Do we have the right to be looking through this farmer's eyes? Well, his higher self did give consent to this. And this is what happened.
Above me is a giant craft.
And what does that look like? As you look up at the craft, what does it look like from that point of view?
Square on the bottom, but comes to a point almost like a pyramid at the top.
And do you see any windows or doors or openings on this craft? Do you get a sense of any colorations or signatures on the craft?
No, just the dark bottom of the craft, some shape on top, clouds above it, and a line or a light coming from the center down to the ground.
And is this craft on a planet or is it up in outer space?
A planet, because there's trees in the background.
Do you know what planet this is? Is this planet Earth?
I believe so.
Okay. And are you looking at this as an observer or a participant?
I'm observing.
Okay. And that body that you're observing with, does it feel male or female, or is that irrelevant?
Male, Brazilian.
Okay. And as you look at your skin, what color is the skin?
Dark.
Okay. Does the body
Reddish brown.
Does the body feel old or young?
Mid-40s.
Okay. And is there any type of clothing that you're seeing on this body?
White shirt. Blue pants.
Okay. And is there any jewelry or ornaments on the body also?
No.
Okay.
Hat.
What does the hat look like?
It's a white flat hat, brimmed hat. Keep the sun off.
Okay. And are you on the ground right now?
Yeah, I'm a farmer in a field in a deep part of the mountains of Brazil.
Okay. Is there anybody around you? Or are you alone?
No.
Okay. And as you're looking at this craft, what are you sensing, seeing, or experiencing?
At first, red lights from the bottom, like laser on the corners, come down to a point on the ground, the same point, almost creating like an upside down pyramid shape, just with a laser beneath the square pyramid object.
And what are
Or
these
side.
lasers? What are they focused on?
I can't see that. It's below my vision.
Okay. And how are you feeling as you're watching this?
Startled at first and then mesmerized. The lights, the laser lights turn off. No, it's more like they go to a square down and they turn off, and then white flooding light in the same shade as a vehicle goes to the ground.
Have you ever seen lights like this before?
No.
Okay. How far away are you from it?
A couple miles
Okay.
above, sitting almost. And it's like valleys, and I watched it descend. That's how I got a good look at the bottom. Top looks like a pillar you'd see from India. Very elaborate.
Do they know you're there?
If they do, they don't care.
Do you know what they're doing there?
They're taking something. People maybe up in the light. No, souls. Souls
And
up in the light.
were they below the ground, or where were these souls kept?
Container beneath the ground.
All right. Do you know anything about the container or types of souls being taken?
The captured ones.
Were they native to the land?
From all over the world.
The light side wanted us to see what was happening. The light side was guiding this session to show us what has been happening to the souls on this planet. This biological living farmer consented to this, letting us utilize his eyes so we could shed the light of the true plight of what's happening to humanity. What types of beings are inside this ship? What is their species?
Epsilon eridani. The insectoid.
And do you see any of them?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What do they look like?
Much like the movie Predator.
Okay.
The long skull. No. The alien thing in that movie. That is like that, but the body is more like
And as they're removing the container of souls, do you hear or see anything that piques your interest?
screams.
Okay. Do you know if it's just one container or are there many?
Thousands.
Okay.
Coming up in the light at the same time.
Do you have an idea of Earth time?
Current Earth time.
Okay. Are you the farmer, or are you viewing this through the farmer?
Through the biological farmer.
Thank you for that information. All right. How long have these insectoids been ravaging souls on this planet?
5,000 years.
5,000 years? Okay. What are they doing with the souls?
Holding them
For what purpose?
to drive an agenda on the planet of Gaia. Eradication of the current species so they may take over and populate.
And that's the agenda?
To feed the dark ones who have this agenda to help them in their ways. They plan to deceive even them that they work with.
So who are the dark ones? And I need to pause for a moment. These are the unseen entities that affect us all every day. These are the ones whose goal it is to break down our souls. Their goal is to destroy our soul health so that they can overpower us. But as scary as this is, know that knowledge is power. And once we know, we know. Once we know, it gets harder for them to access us. There's many critical beings out there. There's many benevolent beings, good beings out there. And we are sitting in the midst of a spiritual war. We think the spiritual war is on this planet. Well, the spiritual war is happening in many dimensions. Here's the deal, though, guys. We can no longer afford to wait and sit on the sidelines to see what's going to happen. Because if we don't pick a side, one will be chosen for us. Let me repeat. If we don't pick a side, one will be chosen for us. That abrogates your free will. What side do you choose? Who are the other dark ones?
Group of private businessmen on the planet who hold the power.
How did they get the power?
Long plan of techniques to remove sovereignty from human beings. Feed a negative consciousness, encourage negativity, strife, and war. An attempt to lower population rates in hopes of taking over the planet.
What do they gain when they take the planet?
All resources.
Does Earth have more resources than most planets?
Yes. Quantum, physical, and spiritual.
What do they use the souls for in these containers?
They feed.
If you follow my social media posts, you'll hear me discuss the concept of the dark entities and how they use us as soul food. When these beings fell from the light of God, they all of a sudden found themselves without a food source. The light of God is an energetic source. Everything is energy. They no longer had access to that energy. And now they need a new form of energy. These beings fell from the heavens, fell from the fifth dimension and above. They're now residing in the fourth dimension. We live in the third dimension. Our third dimension is the land of physicality. We need time, space, and gravity to have these physical experiences. When we leave these bodies, we're supposed to, by the way, these bodies are like rental units. We don't keep them forever, but the better we take care of them, the bigger our deposit is when we leave. We live in the third dimension. We need to, when we leave the bodies, go from the third to the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension to go home, the higher realms. Well, this fourth dimension was hijacked by these dark beings because they needed a food source. They saw us and they're like, you know what? We can do this. We can use their energy. We can use humanity's energy as a food supply. What this does is it stops us from reincarnating from the higher realms. Yes, not all reincarnation happens from the heavens. Not every baby is heaven sent. Think of a serial killer. Think of Jeffrey Epstein. Were those souls heaven sent? No, they came back here more and more broken each time. Bad things happen to good people. So once we know, we know. Once we know, we can cross them over. Every soul needs to be crossed over. I say this over and over. The dark side wants soul energy. They want ghost energy. But when we can cross these souls over to go back home to the heavens, to the higher realms, they lose a food source. And that's really important to understand. When they lose the food source, they become weaker. There are, however, groups out there that are helping us with this spiritual war. There's a lot of benevolent beings there. It's rather complicated, but they're working with us to assist us in the best possible outcome. Looking at the insectoids and the other groups, such as the Greys, we know they utilize the souls to feed off of them. What else do they utilize humanoid souls for?
Repopulation.
Repopulation where?
On the planet, a recycling of souls.
So when
to drive a certain consciousness on the planet.
So they're responsible for keeping the consciousness of the planet in a status quo format?
Yes.
Okay. Are they finding it a difficult struggle to keep the consciousness? Okay. Is this why they need to depopulate the planet?
Yes. The most important. As humanity's consciousness raised, they've utilized every means they can to stop the consciousness from growing out of their control. It's about frequency.
When we or groups of people or beings can recapture the humanoid souls and send them back to source, does that thwart their plan?
In this endeavor, a soul can be lost. The most effective way to reunite a soul is to send it to its higher self, the one governing the experience of this particular soul.
What happens when the soul is separated from the higher self?
Fracturings, duplication, attempted duplication can be made.
Is this how they create super soldiers?
Yes. Fracturing of the mind, of the consciousness, creates multiple dualities of this particular soul fractured in pieces. And certain souls, they want to utilize this towards multiple nefarious uses.
As I said before, reincarnation is not always governed by the higher realms. We've been programmed to believe this, but who programmed us to believe this? Well, surely it wasn't God. Surely the dark side, if they have us thinking that every soul comes from heaven, then there's no problem, right? So this is one of the lies that have been perpetuated on humanity. It keeps us within the matrix. These nefarious beings can also reincarnate us. So if you have a loved one who's died, you need to make sure they cross over. You can request a team of angels to have them cross over. You can send me an email and I can send you some information on how you can do it. Take your power back. We don't need to just let the soul languish. We've been programmed to believe that maybe they have unfinished business, or maybe they weren't ready to go, or they were just a bad soul and they don't deserve to cross over. So let's rethink how we do our business so we can gain our soul sovereignty back. Because when a soul reincarnates from that lower astral, those lower realms, it never receives a soul healing and restoration. The 23rd Psalm means something, people. He restoreth my soul. Lo, behold, I shall walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I shall fear no evil. Well, if there's no evil, why fear it? Well, there is evil. When a soul reincarnates from these lower realms, they come back fractured, they come back broken. They come back with a spiritual team that is not optimal for their soul health. Many times their moral compass is missing. Their moral compass is broken. These are the kids that start torturing animals at a young age. That is not normal. This is how we get serial killers. This is how we get pedophiles. They keep coming back here more and more broken. The goal of these dark beings is to keep the consciousness of the planet on a lower level so that they can retain control of humanity and this planet. When we learn how to connect to our higher selves, it strengthens our soul. It strengthens our connection to God, to the divine, to the creator. It creates the resistance the dark side can't handle. What exactly is the higher self?
It is the one responsible for the collection of lifetimes and experiences.
As you're telling me this, you're showing me, or my team is showing me, the higher self and the conscious self and all the bodies of that self, almost in a string theory format.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm seeing literally strings and pieces being separated out, but they're connected to the higher self.
Yes.
So when these insectoids or grays or whomever they disconnect that soul from the higher self, they now own these soul particles. Is that correct?
And can direct that soul's future from that moment forward. Yes.
Thank you. Very good information. Thank you. Now that they have this soul energy and it's disconnected from the higher self, can
we be reprogrammed to do whatever it is they want it to?
Okay. How does the higher self get those soul particles back, or doesn't it?
Through time and concentrated effort and through support team. Each soul has their own tribe, their own support team that they come in with. That support team can help reunify that soul with their higher self.
Do there need to be rescue missions of sorts to collect these canisters of souls?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what I do at night?
Yes.
Who else does that at night?
You have a team of 30 directly connected to you throughout the world.
Okay.
Does the same work.
Thank you. So from these soul fragments or segments that they create by separating the higher self, do they create clones?
Yes, in an attempt to house these new identities, carry out their plans.
And do they also create the altars?
Yes, this is the programming I mentioned before. Like a clean slate to be able to put in whatever they want.
So is a clone also an altar?
Yes, by pure definition of creation.
And an altar is also a clone?
An altar is a fragment off of the original soul.
And the big question is what is higher self? I'm always asking questions. I always want to know these answers. And while I know what higher self is, I still wanted to ask because maybe there's a different element or aspect that we don't know about. Or maybe they're telling us a lie. So a big part of this is trying to figure out what's true and not true. Whatever it is for you, listen to what rings true for you and ask why. And throughout this session, I can see through Sierra's eyes. It helps me to know what's true and not true. And in this case, it was really helping me to know who was speaking through Sierra. It's because of this session, I have redirected the intentions of my work. I have seen this over and over, and it is very, very real. These beings, if they can separate our soul from our higher self, if they can separate us from God, to God's source, they can have pieces and aspect of our soul. This is important to know, and I've seen this many times. Our souls can be sliced and diced. They can be soul napped. What we saw today in this session were thousands and thousands of souls that were literally soul napped. One of the concepts about homeopathy is the concept of as above, so below. This is an energetic medicine, homeopathy. So if we have kidnapping on our physical mortal realms, a child is kidnapped or somebody's abducted, that same concept rings true of the soul. The soul too can be soul napped. And this was a huge rescue mission to retain and return these soul pieces, soul fragments, and return them back to God, back to the higher realms for the soul healing and soul restoration. Recycling is not going to save the planet, friends, but restoring our soul, restoring humanity will. Thank you for listening, and there will be more in the next episode as well.